In the quiet suburb of Briarwood, on the edge of Maple Street, stands a house that the locals often refer to as the Whispering House. Its weathered facade, cloaked in creeping ivy, has been the subject of local legend for decades. The story begins in the early 1960s, when the house was newly built. A young couple, Alice and Richard Martin, moved in with dreams of starting a family. They were a loving pair, full of hope and excitement, but their joy was short-lived. Shortly after moving in, strange occurrences began. It started with faint whispers in the night, soft, indistinguishable murmurings that seemed to float through the walls. Alice would often wake up to the sound of someone crying, but when she went to check, the house was empty. Richard, dismissive at first, attributed these sounds to the settling of the house or perhaps an overactive imagination. One evening, as a storm raged outside, the whispers turned into a distinct, sorrowful voice that called out Alice's name. Terrified, she insisted on leaving the house, but Richard reassured her it was just the storm causing eerie acoustics. Then came the night when Alice found an old, dusty diary in the attic. It belonged to a woman named Margaret Halsey, who had lived in the house during the late 19th century. The diary's entries were filled with melancholy, speaking of a tragic love affair and a mysterious disappearance. Margaret had written of hearing whispers too, whispers that grew louder and more frantic as her own life spiraled into despair. Alice shared the diary with Richard, who was now as unnerved as she was. They decided to investigate further and discovered that Margaret had been engaged to a man who had vanished without a trace. It was rumored that the man had been a victim of foul play, and Margaret, heartbroken and desperate, had been driven mad by grief. She had spent her final days in the house, her cries for her lost love echoing through its walls. Over the following weeks, the disturbances in the house grew more intense. Objects would move on their own, doors would slam shut, and the once whispered voices turned into anguished cries. Alice and Richard's nights were plagued by dreams of a woman in period clothing wandering the halls, her face etched with sorrow. Desperate to end the torment, the Martins consulted a local historian who revealed that the house had been built over the site of an old well. It was believed that the well had been used to dispose of bodies in the past, adding to the house's dark reputation. In a final attempt to rid themselves of the restless spirits, the Martins conducted a séance. During the ritual, the atmosphere grew frigid, and the cries of Margaret became deafening. As the séance concluded, Alice felt a cold hand grasp hers, a final, desperate plea for release. The candlelight flickered violently before extinguishing, plunging the room into darkness. The next morning, the Martins packed their belongings and left the house, never to return. The house stood empty for years, its legend growing with each passing day. It was said that the whispers could still be heard on quiet nights, a reminder of the sorrow that once enveloped the home. To this day, no one dares to live in the Whispering House on Maple Street. The locals say that the house itself is waiting for someone who might listen to its mournful whispers and finally give Margaret Halsey the peace she so desperately sought. Years passed, and the Whispering House on Maple Street remained abandoned, its windows boarded up and ivy creeping over its dilapidated facade. The story of the Martins and the mysterious Margaret Halsey became local lore, a ghost story told around campfires and whispered at sleepovers. Yet, as the legend grew, so did the interest in the house. In the late 1980s, a new family, the Johnsons, moved to Briarwood. They were intrigued by the history of the house and saw it as a challenge. The Johnsons, Sarah and Mark, were avid history enthusiasts and amateur paranormal investigators. They saw the Whispering House not as a haunted relic but as an opportunity to uncover the truth behind its chilling reputation. After buying the house at a remarkably low price, the Johnsons set to work. They began by restoring it to its former glory, meticulously peeling away layers of grime and neglect. As they worked, they encountered strange occurrences. Footsteps in the attic, unexplained cold spots, and eerie whispers that seemed to follow them as they went about their tasks. One evening, while Sarah was cleaning the attic, she discovered an old, hidden compartment behind a wall. Inside, she found a collection of personal items, jewelry, letters, and a locket containing a portrait of a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Margaret Halsey. The letters were dated from the 1800s and detailed a desperate plea for help from a woman named Eleanor, who had lived in the house after Margaret. The letters told a disturbing tale. Eleanor had been a close friend of Margaret and had witnessed her descent into madness. Margaret's cries for help had continued after her death, haunting the house and driving those who lived there to despair. Eleanor had written that Margaret's spirit was trapped, endlessly mourning her lost love and seeking closure. The Johnsons decided to delve deeper. They organized a thorough investigation with a team of paranormal experts. They set up cameras and recording equipment throughout the house, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. That night, the house was alive with activity. The equipment picked up faint, sorrowful cries and eerie, disembodied voices. During the seance conducted by the team, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. The temperature plummeted, and the room was filled with a sense of deep sadness. The spirit of Margaret, through a medium, communicated her anguish. She revealed that her lover had been wronged by the very people who had built the house, and his body had been hidden in the well to conceal his murder. Margaret's spirit was bound to the house, her sorrow preventing her from finding peace. Determined to help, the Johnsons, with the assistance of the paranormal team, conducted a ritual to release Margaret's spirit. They performed a cleansing ceremony, placing items from Margaret's life, her locket and the letters, in a special box and laying it at the base of the old well, which had been uncovered during the restoration. As they completed the ritual, a profound silence fell over the house. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and a warm, gentle breeze seemed to flow through the rooms. The whispers ceased, and for the first time in decades, the house felt calm. The Johnsons continued to live in the Whispering House, now with a renewed sense of peace. They documented their findings and experiences, sharing Margaret's story with the world. The house, once a symbol of fear and sorrow, became a beacon of hope and healing. Though the house was no longer haunted, its story lived on. Visitors came to learn about Margaret Halsey and the efforts to give her the peace she deserved. The Whispering House on Maple Street became a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the quest for justice, proving that even the most haunted places could find redemption. The Whispering House on Maple Street had finally found peace, or so it seemed. With Margaret Halsey's spirit seemingly freed from its torment, the Johnsons embraced their new home, which had transformed from a source of dread into a symbol of resolution and healing. The local community grew curious and eventually supportive, celebrating the house's newfound tranquility. However, the serenity was short-lived. In the early 1990s, the Johnsons began to notice subtle changes. The house, while quiet, seemed to hold onto a tension just beneath the surface. Sarah and Mark, though hopeful, couldn't shake the feeling that something remained unsettled. Their concern was confirmed one fateful evening when Sarah, while going through old documents in the attic, discovered another hidden compartment behind a false wall. Inside, she found an ornate wooden box sealed with an intricate lock. The box was engraved with strange symbols and bore an old-fashioned key. Inside, Sarah found old documents, including blueprints of the house with additional rooms and passages marked in faded ink. The documents also contained references to something called the Covenant, a dark and enigmatic term that appeared repeatedly. Among the papers was a final note scrawled in a trembling hand. Asterisk, the pact has not been fulfilled. The curse will return if the truth remains hidden. Asterisk. Alarmed, the Johnsons sought help from historical experts and paranormal investigators. The research uncovered a grim revelation. The Covenant was a secret pact made by the original builders of the house, who were involved in dark rites intended to gain immense power and wealth. The house had been constructed on a site imbued with malevolent energy, which had been kept at bay through dark rituals and hidden sacrifices. Margaret Halsey's tragedy was only a part of a much larger, sinister plan. The documents revealed that the original builders had hidden an artifact, a cursed relic, in the house, binding malevolent forces to it. The artifact was supposed to be hidden within the house's walls, awaiting a specific event or sign to reactivate the curse. The Johnsons, now faced with the possibility of a renewed curse, decided to confront the issue head-on. With the assistance of a renowned paranormal historian and a team of specialists, they undertook a thorough investigation. They examined every inch of the house, uncovering secret passages and hidden rooms that had been bricked over or concealed for decades. In one of these hidden rooms, they found the artifact, a dark, ornate mirror with an unsettling aura. The mirror had been intricately carved with symbols matching those found on the box. Its glass was cracked, and the frame was adorned with grotesque figures. The paranormal team performed a cleansing ritual to neutralize the artifact's power. The mirror was carefully removed and destroyed, its fragments sealed in a special containment unit. The team performed an additional ritual to cleanse the house of any lingering malevolent energy. As the rituals concluded, the atmosphere in the house shifted once more. A sense of calm settled over the whispering house. The shadows and whispers that had once plagued the home seemed to vanish, leaving behind an air of tranquility. The Johnsons, though shaken by the events, felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They had uncovered the house's darkest secrets and laid them to rest. The Whispering House, now free from its sinister past, became a cherished landmark in Briarwood. It was no longer just a haunted house but a symbol of perseverance and the triumph of light over darkness. The story of the Whispering House continued to be told, not as a tale of horror, but as a testament to the courage of those who faced the unknown and emerged victorious. The house stood as a reminder that even the darkest places could find redemption and peace, and that sometimes the greatest challenges are met with the greatest resolve. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. With the cursed mirror destroyed and the malevolent forces expelled, the Whispering House on Maple Street seemed to embrace a new era of peace and normalcy. The Johnsons continued to live there, their lives slowly returning to a sense of routine, but they couldn't shake the feeling that their ordeal might not be entirely over. A few years later, in the early 2000s, Briarwood experienced a surge of interest in local history and paranormal investigations. The Whispering House had become something of a local legend, and its story attracted historians, ghost hunters, and curious visitors. While the house had shed its previous reputation, it still drew attention, and the Johnsons occasionally hosted tours and talks about their experiences. One crisp autumn evening, a group of enthusiastic college students from a nearby university, led by their professor Dr. Elaine Carter, visited the house. Dr. Carter was known for her work on supernatural folklore and had a particular interest in the Whispering House due to its complex history. She was keen to investigate further, not for the sake of sensationalism but to understand the historical context of the house's dark past. The students arrived with a mix of excitement and skepticism, armed with recording equipment, cameras, and notebooks. As they toured the house, they were struck by its beauty and the evident care taken by the Johnsons. The group spent hours conducting interviews and examining the rooms, paying special attention to the areas previously associated with paranormal activity. In the middle of their investigation, Dr. Carter and her team discovered an old journal hidden in a corner of the attic. The journal belonged to a man named Charles Blackwood, a previous owner of the house who had lived there during the early 1900s. The entries detailed his struggles with the house's malevolent energy, which he believed was tied to a series of strange occurrences and inexplicable events. The journal described how Blackwood had attempted to rid the house of its dark influence by performing his own rituals, which were unsuccessful. He had documented disturbing visions and an ever-present sense of dread, and his final entries hinted at a desperate plan to destroy a hidden source of darkness that he could never find. The journal ended abruptly, leaving Blackwood's fate unresolved. Intrigued, Dr. Carter and her students began to piece together the information from Blackwood's journal with the house's known history. They uncovered evidence suggesting that Blackwood might have been a victim of the house's dark energy rather than its master. This revelation painted a different picture of the house's past, suggesting that the malevolent forces might have been more deeply rooted than previously understood. The team's investigation led them to a further revelation. The curse and the artifact had been part of a much older ritual connected to an ancient cult that once thrived in the area. This cult had performed sacrifices to harness dark energies, which had seeped into the land long before the house was built. Determined to uncover the full extent of the house's history, Dr. Carter and her team conducted a series of archaeological digs around the property. They unearthed fragments of old ritual sites and remnants of ancient artifacts, confirming the existence of the cult and its sinister practices. These findings reinforced the idea that the house was a focal point for dark energies that had been manipulated and harnessed over centuries. As the investigation continued, the atmosphere in the house grew tense again. Despite the efforts to rid the house of malevolent forces, small, inexplicable occurrences began to return. Faint whispers, cold drafts, and the occasional glimpse of shadowy figures. The Johnsons, now well-versed in the house's dark history, were concerned but resolved to support Dr. Carter's research. One evening, as Dr. Carter and her team were conducting a final investigation, they discovered an old, sealed chamber beneath the house. Inside, they found remnants of the ancient cult's rituals, including markings and symbols that matched those found on the cursed mirror. The chamber was eerily untouched, suggesting it had been sealed long ago to contain the dark energy within. Dr. Carter and her team performed an intensive cleansing ritual in the chamber, using a combination of historical and contemporary methods to neutralize any lingering dark forces. They left offerings and performed a final blessing to ensure the chamber and the house were free from past malevolent influences. As the ritual concluded, the house seemed to exhale a long-held breath. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the faint whispers that had resurfaced finally faded away. The whispering house, once again, settled into a state of serene calm. The Johnsons continued to live there, grateful for the finality of the cleansing. Dr. Carter's research was published, adding depth to the story of the Whispering House and its complex history. The house, now free from its dark past, became a symbol of endurance and the quest for understanding. It stood as a reminder that even the deepest shadows could be faced and illuminated, and that every story, no matter how dark, has the potential for resolution and peace. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. As the 21st century progressed, the Whispering House on Maple Street was celebrated for its history and the heroic efforts of those who faced its dark past. The house stood as a testament to overcoming adversity, its once sinister reputation now a compelling tale of redemption. However, the tranquility was soon disrupted by a new and unexpected twist. In the summer of 2024, a high-profile tech entrepreneur named Lucas Hargrove purchased the house. Hargrove, known for his innovative ventures in virtual reality and artificial intelligence, saw the Whispering House not just as a historical landmark but as a potential testing ground for his latest project, a VR experience designed to explore historical mysteries and paranormal phenomena. Hargrove's plan was to create a fully immersive experience that would allow users to virtually explore the house's history, including its haunted past. He collaborated with a team of historians, software engineers, and paranormal experts to build a detailed virtual replica of the house, incorporating elements from the extensive research done by Dr. Carter and her team. The launch event for the VR experience was set for a crisp autumn evening. The house was bustling with activity as developers and guests prepared for the unveiling. The excitement was palpable as Hargrove's team demonstrated the advanced technology that promised to bring the Whispering House's story to life in a groundbreaking way. As night fell, the first group of guests donned their VR headsets and began their virtual journey through the house. The experience was astonishing. Participants walked through the rooms, witnessed historical events, and interacted with virtual representations of the house's past occupants, including a digital version of Margaret Halsey and Charles Blackwood. But as the night progressed, something unexpected happened. The VR system began to glitch. Participants reported seeing strange, shadowy figures in their virtual environments, figures that were not part of the planned experience. The disturbances grew more intense, with users experiencing abrupt drops in temperature and unexplained sensations of dread. Hargrove, determined to address the issue, called in his top engineers to troubleshoot the problem. As they investigated, they discovered that the glitches were not just technical malfunctions but appeared to be connected to an unknown source of interference. The anomalies in the VR system seemed to be tapping into something beyond the virtual realm. Realizing that the disturbances might be linked to the house's true history, Hargrove contacted Dr. Elaine Carter, who had remained a local authority on the Whispering House. Dr. Carter and her team, intrigued and concerned, arrived at the house to help resolve the situation. They quickly discovered that the VR system had inadvertently activated a latent energy within the house, a remnant of the ancient cult's rituals. The technology had tapped into an energy field that had been dormant since the removal of the cursed mirror and the cleansing of the hidden chamber. The virtual experience had disturbed the delicate balance that had been established, allowing dark forces to once again stir. Dr. Carter, Hargrove, and the paranormal experts worked together to confront the problem. They realized that the VR system's interference was acting like a beacon, drawing the dark energy to the surface. To resolve the issue, they needed to perform a powerful exorcism that combined both ancient rites and modern technology. As they prepared for the exorcism, the house's atmosphere became charged with palpable tension. The walls seemed to hum with energy and strange phenomena. Shadows darting across rooms, sudden gusts of wind, and unexplainable noises intensified. The ritual began with a dramatic clash of light and shadow. Dr. Carter led the ceremony, using traditional methods to purify the space, while Hargrove's team employed advanced tech to monitor and control the energy levels. The VR system was repurposed to emit a stabilizing signal, intended to help balance the energy field and contain the disturbances. In a climactic moment, the house seemed to hold its breath as the exorcism reached its peak. The combination of ancient rituals and cutting-edge technology created a powerful counterforce that pushed back the dark energy. The disturbances peaked, then abruptly ceased, leaving the house in an eerie, but unmistakably peaceful silence. With the exorcism complete, the VR system was restored to its original design. The disturbances were resolved, and the virtual experience continued without issue. The Whispering House had weathered yet another storm, but this time with the combined power of history and technology working in harmony. Hargrove's project became a success, offering users a thrilling and educational journey through the Whispering House's history, and the house itself remained a symbol of resilience and innovation. Dr. Carter and the Johnsons continued their work, now with a deeper understanding of the house's complex nature. The Whispering House on Maple Street stood as a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity and the unyielding spirit of those who faced the unknown. It had been through trials of dark history, technological intrusion, and spiritual reckoning, emerging stronger and more compelling than ever before. Its story, now enriched with layers of adventure and discovery, continued to captivate all who crossed its threshold, leaving an indelible mark on the fabric of Briarwood's lore.